Imagine this for a moment. You wake up tomorrow and everything feels heavy. The notifications piling up, the deadlines pressing in, the arguments waiting to erupt with friends or family. Your mind is already buzzing before the day even begins. You want control over your life, over the chaos. But deep down you feel like a prisoner of your own thoughts. Now here's the paradox. According to some of history's greatest philosophers, the more you try to control the world, the less free you become. True freedom, they argue, does not come from conquering others or silencing every storm around you. It comes from something far more difficult and far more powerful: mastering yourself. So today we are diving into a question that has haunted thinkers. For thousands of years, what does it mean to be free? Is freedom the ability to do whatever you want whenever you want? Or is it something deeper, something inward? Philosophers from Epictetus to Nietzsche, from the Buddha to modern psychology, all point to a surprising answer. Freedom is not out there, it is in here within the mind, and the one who cannot govern himself will never be free, no matter how much he rules the outside world. Most people today equate freedom with choices. If I can pick my job, my clothes, my partner, my beliefs, I am free. But philosophers warn this is an illusion, because having choices is not the same as being free. Why? Because you can be drowning in choices and still be a slave to your impulses, your fears, and your ego. Imagine a man standing in front of a buffet table filled with hundreds of dishes. He can pick anything he wants, but his cravings control him. His body is pulled toward sugar. His ego whispers what looks impressive on the plate. His insecurities whisper what others will think of his choice. He has freedom of options, but no freedom of self. Nietzsche would call this the herd mentality, thinking you are free because you can choose like everyone else, but in reality you are being dragged by forces you don't even see. Epictetus, the Stoic slave turned philosopher, said it even more bluntly: no man is free who is not master of himself. And if we look at the modern world, the illusion only grows. We think freedom is scrolling endlessly through apps or saying whatever we want online, but ask yourself who really controls you in that moment: your will or the algorithm that knows your cravings better than you do? The Stoics understood this. Centuries ago, they lived under emperors' wars and plagues, yet they claimed they were freer than their masters. Why? Because freedom was not about outer circumstances, but about what you allow to control your mind. Epictetus was born a slave with no control over his body or his external life. But he said something revolutionary: you may chain my leg, but not my will. He believed the essence of freedom was learning the difference between what is within our control and what is not. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, echoed the same idea. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This distinction is the core of Stoicism. When you anchor your sense of freedom in things outside of your control, you will always be enslaved by fear, anxiety, and disappointment. But when you anchor it in your ability to govern your responses, you become untouchable. Storms may rage, empires may fall, but the man who rules himself remains free. But Nietzsche pushes the idea further. He asks a haunting question: if you are free from the control of others, what do you do with that freedom? Because for Nietzsche, it is not enough to simply resist the herd or escape society's chains. True freedom is the terrifying responsibility of creating yourself. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch is not a man who withdraws from the world, but one who reshapes it, starting with himself. The Übermensch refuses to be dictated by inherited values, traditions, or shallow desires. Instead, he asks, who am I choosing to become? And he answers by creating his own values, his own meaning, his own life philosophy. But here's the challenge: most people say they want freedom, but when given the chance, they run back to chains. Why? Because freedom is frightening. It means no excuses, no one to blame, no external authority to hide behind. Nietzsche called this the burden of freedom. It is easier to obey the herd than to stand alone. Easier to accept ready-made truths than to carve out your own. But if you dare to face this burden, you step into the highest form of freedom, self-creation. While Stoicism and Nietzsche focus on control and creation, the Zen masters took a different path. They asked, what if the deepest freedom comes not from mastering or creating, but from letting go entirely? The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering. When you cling to desires, fears, or identities, you chain yourself. The moment you let go, you are free. Zen koans often sound like riddles, but they reveal a profound truth. Imagine a monk asking his master, "How can I become free?" The master replies, "Who is holding you?" Zen points to the radical possibility that you are already free, but your clinging, your labels, your endless grasping make you believe you are not. True freedom, they say, is found in the space between thoughts and the silence, when the mind stops chasing and resisting. What makes these ancient ideas so powerful is that modern psychology now backs them up. Neuroscience reveals that much of what we think of as choice is actually unconscious habit. Emotional triggers and social conditioning studies show that people spend nearly half their lives on autopilot, reacting rather than choosing. Your anger when insulted, your craving when tempted, your fear when challenged, these are not freedom, they are reflexes. But here's the good news. Research also shows we can rewire this. We can pause between stimulus and response. That tiny pause, Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, wrote, "In that space lies our power to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and our freedom." Freedom, then, is not the absence of constraints. It is the presence of conscious choice. To make this concrete, let's look at 3 lives that embody different paths to freedom. Socrates, Marcus Aurelius, and Nelson Mandela. Socrates, the gadfly of Athens, was sentenced to death for questioning the city's beliefs. Yet when given the chance to escape prison, he refused. Why? Because to him, freedom was not physical escape, but remaining true to his principles. He said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." His freedom was intellectual and moral, refusing to betray himself, even in the face of death. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, yet in his private journal, he wrote over and over that the true empire is the empire of the self. He reminded himself daily that anger, fear, and vanity were greater prisons than politics or enemies. And Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison, emerged not bitter but free within. He once said, "I realized they could take everything from me except my mind and my heart." His ability to forgive his captors and unite a divided nation came not from external power but from inner mastery. He showed the world that chains on the body cannot bind a liberated soul. The traps that keep us unfree. If freedom is so valuable, why do most people fail to achieve it? Philosophy and psychology agree. There are 3 main traps. The trap of ego, the constant need to prove yourself, argue, defend, and be seen. This keeps you enslaved to others' opinions. The trap of desire, chasing pleasure, money, recognition without realizing that the more you chase, the more you depend on what is outside of you. The trap of fear, avoiding discomfort, pain, or rejection at all costs, but this avoidance only makes you weaker. Every time you run from struggle, you hand away your freedom. So how do we move beyond these traps? Here are 3 philosophical practices, drawn from different traditions but all pointing to the same truth. Stoic discipline. Every day separate what is in your control from what is not. Focus only on the first and release the second. This builds unshakable inner strength. Nietzsche, creation. Ask yourself, if no one told me what to value, what would I choose? Who would I dare to become? Then live by that vision, even if it means standing alone. Zen surrender practice. Letting go. Sit in silence. Breathe and watch the mind chasing one desire after another, and then let it pass. This is the art of freedom through non-clinging, one of the hardest questions. is knowing when to assert yourself and when to surrender should you fight against injustice, argue for your ideas, or simply remain silent. Philosophy teaches this balance if the battle sharpens your soul, if it brings truth or growth. It is worth engaging. But if the battle is only ego against ego, noise against noise, walk away. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to not be like your enemy." Nietzsche said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star." And the Buddha said in the end, "These words matter only what you free yourself from and what you create within." So here is the challenge. For you imagine you only had 100 words left to speak in your entire life. Would you waste them proving yourself in arguments on social media or defending your ego in pointless battles? Or would you use them to speak only what truly matters, what builds, what frees, what creates? True freedom is not out there. It is not in having endless choices or winning every fight. It is in mastering yourself. The one who conquers himself is greater than the one who conquers 1,000 men in battle, and the world will always belong not to those who speak the loudest, but to those who live the freest. Want more deep dives into philosophy, psychology, and the art of power? Sub.